Hue Jackson is with the Cincinnati Bengals because of one reason. He is ready to be the next coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, I guarantee you guys. Hue Jackson, I think, is really clever. He is really good at the political game that some of these coaches play in the NFL with all their contacts. And really, his job with the Browns really just smells foul. Was he a double agent sent to the Browns to wreck them up even further to help out the Cincinnati Bengals? That is a very valid theory. I suspect that Hue was a double agent from the start because some of this stuff that happened in Cleveland just did not make sense. And why did the team keep this guy, for 3 years or whatever with his given track record, 1-15, 0-16, and then like 2-8, whatever it was? Well, the Browns owner, under investigation for some activities involved with this airline businesses, I think. He is a Steelers. He was a former Steelers fan, the owner of the Browns. He was a Steelers fan, so that brings that into question. But mostly what I wanted to talk about here was that Hue Jackson was bought into Cincinnati so he could be the next head coach of the Bengals. Marvin Lewis is probably going to retire after this year. His time is up. The Bengals are one of the worst teams in attendance this year. This may be time for a change. And what the pitch is going to be is that Hue Jackson was offensive coordinator for a couple of years with Andy Dalton, so he's very, very familiar with him. That's going to be the sales pitch that he has worked with A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert and some of these guys on the Cincinnati Bengals already. And it makes it easy to fire Marvin Lewis since the defense has been really bad this year. This makes it even easier to carry forward and just name a new coach. But you know that Mike Brown is in a comfort zone. He's in a comfort zone because he likes Marvin Lewis a lot, and he can sort of serve as a puppet for the organization. Now, if this theory about Hue Jackson being a double agent for the Bengals is true, and he ends up going back to the Bengals in the first place, they start to wonder about this fire. Well, Hue is working the magic because, number one, he's still getting paid by the Browns. He is going to get paid for next year by the Browns, and he may get a new head coaching job on top of it. So Hue Jackson being bad and all of this, well, being bad helped. And you start to understand why this theory is just really strong, that he was always going to head back to the Browns to begin with. And even we've heard the chatter before he took the Browns job that Hue Jackson was going to end up replacing Marvin Lewis. So there were some insiders back then. They knew that far back in time that Hue Jackson was going to inevitably come back. And the timing of this firing, mid-season, just in time to be a defensive assistant with the Bengals, just makes it's such a rotten rat that the Steelers, the Browns owner, would fire him to allow him to go back to the Bengals. Like that. He's already on the Bengals, and he is working. He is getting familiar with the players that he's working with in practice. So really what Hue Jackson is he's getting ready for next year. And what makes this season really easy to legitimize is that no matter what results, if they're going to lose the rest of their games, then, well, the Bengals could say, oh, we didn't have Andy Dalton. We're going to retool our defense, whatnot, yada, yada, yada. We're going to move on from Marvin Lewis. So you understand what the sales pitch is going to be all about. Who said, oh, when Hue Jackson was last year, we made the playoffs. Marvin Lewis, Mike Brown, as you know, has to be familiar with Hue Jackson. Marvin Lewis had to mention, his top coaches to Mike Brown, and he must have made some really good recommendations for Hue Jackson to come back and end up replacing him. Just Mike Brown needed someone that he was really comfortable with, that he already knew, just someone that knows that he can easily control and whatnot. On top of the money incentives, and this just seems perfect because, who else is going to hire Hue Jackson except for the Cincinnati Bengals? The answer is not a snowball's chance in hell that he would land another head coaching job outside of the Cincinnati Bengals. So he's going to be their next coach. This is in the works. It's been in the works for quite some time already. Hue Jackson is a smart man. He's setting himself to be paid by the Bengals and the Browns next year. He's given himself such a mega deal. You have to understand some of these coaches don't mind being fired since they get paid by two teams at the same time. So don't underestimate what Hue Jackson is doing, but understand that with the Cincinnati Bengals, Hue Jackson may actually try to put together the best kind of team that he can possibly put together, because the Browns being bad and all this, it really begs the question if Hue Jackson was a double agent from the start for the Cincinnati Bengals and just one less team to worry about in the division. What goes around comes around, not giving Baker Mayfield the reps. Oh, you beat Drew Stanton for the backup quarterback job. Like, is this supposed to be a joke? Like, no competent coach would do that. This makes you really beg the question whether he's a double agent or not. So, Hue Jackson, you may see him do things a little bit differently in Cincinnati, but there's a whole what goes around comes around narrative, and if the Browns are a playoff team, if the Bengals are not, then Hue Jackson did not play the game correctly, but he is going to be the next coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. Hue Jackson.